Hello everyone, Tina here. I hope your day's going wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm here for PAPERTREY INK and I am super excited to share a project with you using some brand new items from the PAPERTREY INK shop. It's part of their latest release and I think you're gonna go crazy about them. I love winter. I know some people love summer. I love summer too. I'm blessed, I guess, because I get all 4 seasons over here, but I love winter, especially on cards, because I love the snowy look of it, and I am in love with the Into the Blooms Pine die set. This set is pretty amazing. There's 2 pine needles, there's some berries. It looks like there's a lot, but there's 4 pine cones that are each different and unique, different style of pine cones, and they're all layerable, which makes it really nice. For my project today, we're just going to be using one of the pine cones, but I'm going to show you how to layer all 4 to show you the different styles that you can create with this die set. So this is the Into the Blooms Pine die set. Also, I'm going to be using for my sentiment on my project, we're going to be using the Inside Greetings piece stamp set. I have 2 sets in here, but this is the Inside Greetings. This piece set is great not only for the inside of your projects, but also for the outside. I like that you can interchange them for the inside of your card, but not just for the inside. So we'll be using this on the outside of our card. And then Love to Layer is back with a brand new die set. This is the Squares. Love to Layer Squares die set. There's 3 dies in here. If you love the ovals, I think you'll find these are just as fabulous. There are 3 different styles. One has decorative corners. The other is like an eyelet scalloped edge, and then the third one is nice because there's dotted in line detail on the third one, and they're great for layering but great on their own as well. So 3 new items we're going to be playing with. There's lots more to the brand new release. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, head on over there. I think you're going to be super excited about it. So let's start by doing a little bit of die cutting. I mentioned before there's 4 pine cones in this set. Each of them are different. So I know different regions have different styles of pine cones, and I love that all 4 are in this set. So let's grab some colored cardstock. Okay, I have some colored cardstock. Now for the most part, pine cones are brown. Instead of using just brown tones, I thought we would bring in some white cardstock because I'm going to create a wintry pine cone. So adding white cardstock to pine cones is nice because it looks like there's some layer, especially with layered pine cones, because you can create a snowfallen look on them, and that's what I want to do. So I have some white cardstock. I have some dark chocolate for our pine cones, 2 different shades of green for our pine needles. The dark green is Pine Feather, the light green is New Leaf, and then I have Scarlet Jewel for my berries. We're going to start by taking our pine needles. I love pine needles on Christmas and winter cards. I just love this. And I'm going to die cut out 2 sets with the white, with our Pine Feather, and also with our New Leaf. We're going to have lots of pine needles on our card today. And then we're going to start by doing our layers. I'm going to start with our largest pine cone, taking the most solid die. I'll die cut this out with our dark chocolate cardstock. Our middle layer I'll die cut out with the white, and then our third layer will be with the dark chocolate. So we're basically going to sandwich the white in between the dark chocolate. That's for our largest. For our next pine cone, we're going to do the opposite. We'll take the most solid piece, die cut this out with white, the next piece with chocolate, dark chocolate, our third piece with white. This has 5 layers, so our 4th piece will be dark chocolate, and then our 5th piece will be white. So we're just basically alternating the colors. So each layer will be white, brown, and so forth. Now for our next pine cone, I love this pine cone. I think the layers in it create dimension, and it's automatic with all of these layers. It's a 5-layer pine cone, and I'm going to use all 5 layers with white cardstock for this pine cone. And then for my 4th rather, it's only 2 layers. And this one has a most solid layer. We'll die cut this one out with our white cardstock. And then with our next second layer or last layer with this one, we're going to die cut this out with brown. And then finally we have our Scarlet Jewel cardstock and our berries. We have a berry cluster. There's 2 single berries also. We'll die cut out with our Scarlet Jewel cardstock. Now these little pieces, I'm going to zoom in here, and then we have 2 little dies left. These we're going to die cut out a few times. These are accent pieces for your berries, and I'm going to die cut out a couple sets of these circle berries, and then I'm going to die cut out some accent pieces about 3 or 4 times so we can add a little bit of highlighting to our berries. So we have a lot of die cutting to do. And again, I'm going to do a couple sets of our pine needles, including the white too. I might have to bring in another piece of cardstock. But I'm going to run everything through the die cutting machine, and then we're going to create some different style of pine cones. So everything is die cut. It looks like winter already. I love this. I did end up die cutting out 2 of the pine cones that we're going to be using for our project. And then with white cardstock, this layer that we created with the brown, I die cut out 3 times with the white for a little bit more snowy look for our card today. So we're going to put these off to the side. Now we're going to create first the pine cones that we're not going to be using, but I wanted to show you how easy they are to layer. Now typically when I noticed when you die cut these out, there's one element on each one of the die cuts that is the same, when it makes it really easy to layer. So let's grab some glue. Now for our largest pine cone, I noticed that this little piece on the very bottom, let me show you with my craft pick and zoom in. This little piece here, this one, and this one, and this one, they're all match up. So if you just line up that piece, the rest should fall together beautifully. So let's take some glue, and I'm going to adhere. I'm going to start with this one. We're going to go top to bottom. So I'll take our topmost piece, flip it around, and then I'm going to add a little bit of glue. After I have my glue adhered, I'll just use my tweezers. We'll flip it around, and again, that very bottom corner is all the same. So if you find that corner on each one of these, it should line up beautifully. So I'm just going to line up that bottom corner like so, and we're good to go with this. You see how the white creates a snowfall effect? And then I'm going to flip this around. We're going to add some more glue behind here. Very easy to create all these layers. And then we can add this to our bottom base. And again, using this corner, there's one on this one. We're going to line those up. Gosh, I love the way this looks. And there's pine cone number 1. What I like to do is I'm going to bring in some dark chocolate ink and just using a finger dauber. What I like to do is add a little bit of shading over that white and go around this side too. And then that will finish pine cone number 1. So pretty, huh? Especially, let me show you, when you have them against the pine needles, it kind of really stands out. Doesn't it look really pretty? Now we'll put this up here. We'll go for our second pine cone. This one I kept wanting to flip around like this, but these are actually on the tree or the pine needle branches with the more pointed area facing down. This one we're going to start with our bottom layer. We'll add the next layer up. We're going to bring in a little bit of glue. And for this one, the bottom lines up pretty easily. You're just going to line up the bottom, like so. Flip it back around. And then we'll take our next layer. We'll add some glue. This again will line up perfectly on the bottom. It's very easy to put these together. Our next layer, we're going to add some glue, like so. I think that looks pretty as it is, but we have one more layer. So we're going to flip this around add some glue behind here, and then we can add our last layer right on top of the bottom. So there's 5 layers here, and I just love how this looks. So we have some snow-capped pine cones, and again I'll take my ink dauber and a little bit of my dark chocolate ink, and I'm going to do a little shading with this as well. And then this pine cone is all set. Isn't that so pretty? Okay, our final pine cone, this is the one with no color, but it's very, again, easy to line up. This one, you're just going to line up from the bottom. You'll take the bottom piece and it'll line up beautifully. Just follow those curves, and we'll add this. Again, following that bottom curve. Then our 4th layer, and then we're going to add a little shading to this. I want to pick up some ink that's on the mat. White's peeking out like it's snow. Gosh, I think that's just gorgeous. And then that's another pine cone. So completely different pine cones, but they're all unique in their beauty, I should say. Now for our last pine cone, the one we're going to use on our card, we're going to go ahead and just flip over our brown layers. We're going to add some glue behind here. This one's very easy to put together. And then you just layer it. Layers perfectly on top. Do the same to our next one. Wonderful. Now I'm going to do a little bit of shading to this as well. Okay, once we have all of our, these are actually the 4 pine cones we create. Now we're going to create our berries. This is the berry cluster. And then we have some single berries. We're going to just add a little bit of detail to each one of these by just adding a little dot of glue. And there is one berry here on our cluster that you could actually layer. So I'm going to add a bigger dot of glue over the top. And then we're going to add another one of the smaller berries on the cluster. This is just going to add a little bit of dimension to those berries. And then we're going to add little dots of glue for these too. And then we have our final little highlight. And so our berries are good to go. We're going to put these back in the tray and let those dry. And then in the meantime, we'll zoom back out and we are going to do a little bit more die cutting. Now we're going to work on our background. We're going to bring in our love to layer squares. And I'm going to die cut out the scallop edge with white cardstock, and then our smallest square with soft stone. I love how soft this is against the white. So we'll run this through the die cut machine, and then we can have a home to stamp our sentiment. This is our scalloped edge. I love how dainty this looks. And then this is, our smallest die that has that dotted or pierced detail with the lines. The etched lines are so nice. We're going to layer both of these together just using tape runner. And then I'm going to bring in my stamping positioner, and we're going to stamp our sentiment in the bottom left corner. The sentiment that I'm going to be using is the one that says, "May you be filled with wonder and touched by peace." Such beautiful sentiments. And again, I'm putting this in the bottom right corner. It's going to look kind of funny, But once we have our pine needles, it will balance out. The ink that I'm going to use for my sentiment is the Scarlet Jewel ink. This is the same color as our cardstock. So let's ink this up a couple times and we'll stamp this in the corner. Our sentiment looks just beautiful. And now I have my card base, which is the top folding A2 size card base. I have a panel we're going to put right on top of this. This is soft stone cardstock. Now I adhered my soft stone to my card base, so this is ready to go. We have a strip. This is a 1.5 inch strip by 5.5 inches. I'm going to fishtail the very bottom using my scissors. Like so. And then I'm going to have a piece of vellum that's a 1 inch strip. What I like to do is line up the vellum on my fishtail. And then I'm going to follow that fishtail that we just created along the bottom edge of our Scarlet Jewel. And then our fishtail coordinates, but I want to push it up a little bit like so. Using my tape runner, we're going to adhere some adhesive behind our vellum a little bit towards the middle. This way it's not going to show because we have our love to layer squares here. And then I want to put this right in the center of our card base. So we'll tack this down about 1/2 inch up from the bottom. Now I'm going to take my sentiment panel, flip it around. We're going to add some foam adhesive behind it. Okay, I love creating kind of a glistening, you know, like a little sparkle on my cards. So to do that, I'm going to use some clear glitter and then also some glossy accents. The glitter I'm using, I think I picked up at Walmart. I think it was like 99 cents for this big old thing. And I love using it for winter scene cards. We are going to, I already removed the release paper, so I'll be careful with this. But for our berries and our pine needles, not these ones, but for the most part, these pine needles. And for our pine cones, we're going to add a little bit of sparkle to them. I'm going to bring in some scratch paper. Love doing this for my winter cards. And then I'm going to use my glossy accents. And wherever I want the glitter to stick, I'm just going to go along the side of my pine cone. We'll do it to both sides. You don't want it to be too thick because then it takes longer to dry. You take your clear glitter and just go along the top of it, and then take your tweezers, tap off the excess, and it will dry clear, but you just have that little glisten on your pine cones. Love to do this. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. And sometimes when it dries also, it will pick up your ink. Since we put dark chocolate ink on the side of our pine cone, the glossy accent sometimes will lift up that ink so it gives it a vintage look. I'm not sure if it will do it with this ink, but we'll see when it dries. Since we have our pine cones done, I'm going to funnel this back. And then we're going to do the same thing with our pine needles. We're going to add a little, just a little bit on the very ends with glossy accents in our glitter. So just, I like to add little dots. You can see just little blotches, add a lot. So we'll set these aside to dry. Look at this one. And of course the glossy accent's a little bit clouded, but when it dries clear. Look how pretty the white looks. You can see that sparkle and that glisten. It's just stunning. Love this one. So let's bring back our card base. We'll take our sentiment. This is going to go towards the top, covering that little ribbon strip that we made. And then we get the fun part of adding our pine needles. And of course you want to wait till these dry. For me, these aren't dry all the way. We're going to start with our largest. We can add this. We'll add our green, and I'm just adding adhesive to the end because I like the free-flowing look of this. I think that just looks gorgeous. Okay, you want to make sure you don't obstruct your sentiment. Now, I don't know if you can tell, but it looks like the glossy accent's picking up some of that ink. I popped up my pine cones with foam adhesive. We're going to add these right over the top. I'll just remove the release paper, and I'm a tucker, so I'll tuck some of these together like so. And then I do want to add these pieces. I want to do a little bit of tucking with these underneath. I think that's a good spot for them. And since we have all that glitter, I'm not going to add any more. That will finish my card today. So easy when you have a beautiful die set. Again, our pine cone die set is the Into the Blooms pine. So check it out. It's brand new over at the Papertrey Ink shop. Thanks so much for joining me. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you real soon. Bye-bye.